Hi, my name is Rohit Kandedi, and I'm a forward deployed engineer over here at Anvilogic. For today's topic, we're going to be covering how can we help you understand your environment better. And we're going to be touching on two core topics here. One, through the usage of use case documentation and description, and also a topic that we over here like to call observations. So for use case documentation and description, one of the primary things you really want to be looking at when you're building out a good use case is having the right description in place and adding additional enrichment to it. So what does something like this look like? Well, let's go ahead and look at one particular rule that sits over at the initial access and more so the phishing stage. In this case, we're going to be focusing on malicious document execution. When you're building out a new use case, here are some things you can keep in mind that can really help enhance that use case itself and that rule itself, and really give that end user or that analyst who's ultimately going to be looking at this a lot better context. You can be adding things like kill chain phases or MITRE tactics and techniques, so they get that overall picture of where this attack falls in. You can be adding things like threat examples, so they understand from an attacker's point of view, what does bad look like? Even adding context around related references to tell that end user, hey, this is where my idea actually derived from. Maybe it was a particular threat intelligence article that you came across, or if you have the capability to attach it to certain exploit groups or actor groups. Going into the rule itself, you can even do things like rule testing to say, hey, this is exactly what a true positive looks like within your environment. And even adding additional mappings like MITRE v7 or MITRE v9 mappings, particular source space assumptions that might be specific to your organization. But let's say that rule itself does fire. How do you quickly make that determination on whether a particular rule is bad or not? In this case, we're looking at a particular attack path, a more complicated attack path of a Fin6 ransomware scenario, which is constructed of multiple different use cases strung together in a particular scenario-based, a pattern-based attack. We'll focus in on the one rule we were looking at before, that malicious document execution, which one kind of gives you that initial one-liner that says, hey, this is exactly what happened for this particular rule and this particular event at this particular time. Also, one of the things that's also available is threat indicator details and normalized field names that can quickly tell you, hey, here's additional context around this particular event, and providing you that additional enrichment that lets you make that determination of whether this is a true positive or a false positive very quickly. Now, I was kind of mentioning the topic of observations before. What exactly are observations? Well, there are some analysts and senior analysts who can look at this alert and just say, you know what, we've seen this before. I know exactly who this activity is related to. Where a junior analyst will really need to get a feel for their environment before they understand particular nomenclatures of host names, particular usernames that exist within the organization, even particular processes that might be very specific to your organization. But one of the things we introduced was observations, where you can quickly hover over fields that have this capability enabled and get that understanding by saying, oh, in this particular case, that Kevin.test is actually a red team account. And here's some additional context where you can get in touch with that owner. Or in this case, what exactly is this host and who does it belong to? Instead of having to rummage through a variety of different external systems, having all this data centralized makes it a lot easier for you to make that analysis and make that determination on whether this attack or this event is malicious or not. So once again, to do a quick recap, when it comes to use cases and building out use cases, ensuring that you have the right levels of documentation and enrichment to get that context, as well as the triage side of things, where when an actual event itself fires, adding some sort of institutional knowledge where even if a senior analyst leaves, you don't lose all that knowledge that comes with it, where you can still say, hey, anybody can go ahead and look at this particular user and quickly make the determination on who that user belongs to without needing to go through a ton of different external systems. Once again, if this sounds interesting to you or want to know more about either of these features, please go ahead and reach out for a demo over at www.anvilogic.com.